So that's why you shake our hands.
Thank you. Everyone may be seated.
Yeah, you know, keep doing this.
All right, we are here on the matter, State of Ohio versus Jamal T. Mansour, 16 CRA 2206. The record should reflect Mr. Mansour is in court by way of video conferencing. It is my understanding that Mr. Justin Withrow and Michael Hennenberg are entering an appearance on behalf of Mr. Mansour. Is that correct?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. That is correct.
All right, and also in court is Mr. Mike O'Shea, the prosecutor for the City of Rocky River. I have some additional motions that have been filed by Mr. O'Shea. And counsel, have you had an opportunity to receive and review those motions?
I have received copies of those motions and have had an opportunity to discuss them with the prosecutor as well.
All right.
Thank you.
Our primary purpose today is I have continued the defendant's arraignment so that he could have the advice of counsel as to whether or not he would wish to waive his right to preliminary hearing and have his case go downtown to the grand jury for indictment. Mr. Withrow, have you been able to discuss this matter with your client?
We have, Your Honor.
And is your client waiving his right to a preliminary hearing?
Your Honor, at this time we would ask that a preliminary hearing be scheduled. I discussed with Prosecutor O'Shea. We would be willing to waive the 10-day rule and push it out to a mutually agreeable date between not only the court but Prosecutor O'Shea and myself.
All right. Rocky River, the person in the video room, do you have a waiver of time for the scheduling of preliminary hearing that we could have Mr. Mansour sign?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Let's please have him sign that. And then with respect to setting that date, Mr. O'Shea, I do have you in court for a docket on October 20th. Is that a date that would work for everyone, or would you like a sooner date?
That works for me.
My apologies, Your Honor. That will work.
That date will work. All right, we will set this matter for October 20th at 10:30 a.m. in this courtroom for a preliminary hearing. And has the time waiver been signed?
Not yet, Your Honor.
All right, please let me know when it has. Thank you.
Your Honor, we have the waiver of time for prelim from Judge Hagan's courtroom. Acceptable for him to sign?
Yes, it's the same for both. Thank you.
Right here, sir. This over basically says you're waiving time for your prelim here.
The waiver's been signed, Your Honor.
Form signed, Your Honor.
Very good. At this time, the court sets the preliminary hearing as stated for October 20th, 2016, 10:30 a.m., courtroom number 4. And now the court will take up the motions of the prosecutor, and additionally, Mr. Mansour, as you recall, when you were in front of me on Tuesday, I ordered a protection order, and I issued that protection order and listed many persons who were covered by the protection order who were family members. I have received from the city of Rocky River a request that 2 additional people be added to the protection order. Mr. O'Shea, would you please address that request?
Certainly, Your Honor. If it please the court, there are actually 3 people that we'd like to add to the order, Your Honor.
All right.
The first is the ex-daughter-in-law of the defendant. And I'll spell the name. I think she's on the paperwork that you have up there, Judge. She's the mother of the 2 children, 11 and 7, and I'll get to their names in a second. But her name is Renaya, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, R-A-N-I-A, last name Ajabed, H is in Henry, A-J-A-B-E-D. She's the ex-wife of one of the people already listed on the protection order, Mansour. In addition to that, her 2 children, first name, Jamal, J-A-M-A-L, same last name, Mansour, M-A-N-S-O-U-R, age 11. In addition to that, Jenna, J-E-N-N-A, I believe that's the spelling, Mansour, same last name, age 7. Thank you.
All right, and Mr. O'Shea, the reason you're seeking their addition, and also I will need a birth date for the 3rd person you mentioned.
Very well, Judge. Judge, just for the reasons that the original protection order was issued, we'll incorporate those by reference. And specifically requested by the mother, Renee Ajabed. She has expressed some fear as well, Your Honor. So in the abundance of caution, given where we are in this, at this point we'd ask that they be added as well, Your Honor.
Thank you. And counsel, at this time, do you object to amending the TPO to adding those 3 names?
We have no objection, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Mansour, I am directing your attention to the fact that a protection order was issued that listed your family members. I am now amending that protection order to add the daughter-in-law, Renea, who's been mentioned in court by the prosecutor, and the 2 children, Jamal and Jenna Mansour. Do you understand that they are part of the protection order, and you are absolutely prohibited from having contact with them? All other orders of this protection order are now in place with respect to these 3 additional people. Do you understand that?
Yes,
Do you agree to follow the protection order as it relates to all of these 3 people as well as the other people that were named the other day?
yes,
All right, thank you very much then. That protection order will be amended and it will be sent to you so that you have a copy of it. Now, I want to also catch up on other issues that were pretrial conditions of release that I had issued on the first day I saw you. Number 1, your passport. Has your passport been turned over to the Rocky River Police Department?
Your Honor, I have this passport in my possession, and I'm handing it to Prosecutor O'Shea now.
I'll hand it to your bailiff for now, Judge, wherever you want to put it with us or
All
with
right,
the
thank
court.
you. All right, we are going to keep that with the Rocky River Police Department during the pendency of this action. The next matter to address is the prosecutor has asked that the bond be amended, and at this time, Mr. O'Shea, it's my understanding you are seeking the murder charge be amended to a $3 million. Is that cash or surety bond that you're seeking?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you are seeking still a $1 million bond, 10% rule on the charges of felonious assault under 2202?
Well, Judge, just for the record, we're okay with the felonious assault 2202 bond remaining the same. It's the domestic violence bond, Judge, and that would be 2203.
2203, okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you're seeking a $1 million 10% bond?
Correct, Judge.
All right, and counsel, do you wish to be heard on that?
I would, Your Honor. Thank you. Mr. Mansour is a 63-year-old United States citizen who just surrendered his passport to the court because of the Rocky River Police. He has absolutely no prior criminal record of any kind, and he has been a Northeast Ohio business owner since approximately 1978. He fully understands and appreciates that he can have absolutely no contact with any of the protected persons that the court has listed in the temporary protection order, and he understands that he must attend and appear at all court proceedings. If the court seeks to further restrict Mr. Mansour, we would consent to electronic monitoring, provided that the court would order that he be permitted to come to counsel's office as well as attend medical appointments. Mr. Mansour suffers from type 2 diabetes, which requires him to receive insulin shots 3 times a day. He has 2 stents in his heart and apparently suffers from an additional blockage as well, and also suffers from high blood pressure. I would respectfully submit to the court that he is not a flight risk as a result of surrendering his passport, and his willingness to be placed on electronic monitoring, as well as living at the home of his brother Adnan Mansour in a local municipality outside of the Rocky River jurisdiction.
All right, Adnan Mansour, where does he reside?
He resides in North Homestead.
Do you have an address?
Judge, can we give you that address for purposes of what we're doing here today off the record? For reasons I'll explain in a second, and then we'd
Okay.
like to be heard, Judge, in response to that.
Yes, I am going to hear you in response, but just all I really need to know without knowing the address is whether this would be an address that the city of Rocky River would be comfortable with.
For reasons that I've already explained to counsel for Mr. Mansour, we're not comfortable with him being anywhere, Judge, in this area outside of a jail cell for the time being. However, the reason I bring up Mr. Adnan Mansour is because he may be one of the people that we're going to talk to you about as far as people he can have contact with. You know, the family member list is going to be relatively short given the totality of the circumstances here. But we're uncomfortable with him being out on bond unless he can make the bond that we're going to request for the reasons I'll state in a moment.
All right, please proceed to state those reasons.
Judge, we're very early on in this investigation. As the court knows, this happened just earlier this week. The defendant essentially assassinated his own daughter, Your Honor, with gunshots to her head, not one but 2. And in addition to that, Your Honor, the defendant has recently been traveling, including but not limited to recently returning from Jerusalem. In addition to that, we have a reason to believe that he has, through a family network of sorts, Your Honor, building a residential apartment complex where he can reside outside of this country, and that he has the financial resources to make bond and flee. In light of the horrible nature of this crime and the severity of it, Judge, we have reason to believe that he would flee if he made the bond that is currently set. Accordingly, as it relates to 2206, which is the murder case, Your Honor, we're asking for the $3 million bond as well as any GPS and the $1 million bond on 2203, Judge. And we can give you a little bit of this information, Judge, that we're talking about, but as I indicated, the investigation is underway. When I make these statements about what we have learned already, trust me when I tell you that we believe them to be credible, but we just can't get the ultra specifics right now, Judge, because of the investigative nature of our case right now.
So pursuant to Rule 46, your main concerns would be flight risk, nature of the offense, and the potential that the defendant would commit an offense of this type again.
Yes, Judge, and we understand that Rule 46 is designed just to make sure that he is attendant at all proceedings, Judge, and that's all we're trying to do here, Judge. Nothing more than that, Judge. As well as protect the public at large, given, a guy that's willing to murder his own daughter, the gate is open on what else he might do, Judge.
All right, and I want to make it clear that this court has been very strong on there being no weapons, all carry concealed permits, all ammunition, any place that the defendant has access to must also be turned over to Rocky River Police Department. Mr. Withrow, I want to give you a chance to respond to Mr. O'Shea's statements.
Thank you, Your Honor. Before I address Mr. O'Shea's statements, it's my understanding that Mr. Mansour's carry concealed permit is in his wallet, which is in the possession of the Rocky River Police Department. And I have had conversations with Prosecutor O'Shea as well as the detective at the Police Department about the surrendering of the additional ammunition to the fire. We are going to make arrangements outside of the courtroom to hand over the ammunition to Rocky River.
Detective Hill, can you confirm whether you've been able to get that carry concealed permit?
I'd have to check it. It's inside of his wallet. I haven't seen it as of yet.
Okay, all right, so if you can make sure that you do that when you leave here, thank you.
You're welcome.
Your Honor, in response to Prosecutor O'Shea's position in terms of moving the court for an order to raise the bond, as I previously stated, Mr. Mansour is a 63-year-old individual who has no prior criminal record. If the court deems it likely, he would submit to electronic monitoring where he would limited release from his brother's North Olmsted home to visit counsel and to attend medical appointments. He has surrendered his passport to the court this morning and is not a risk to flee the jurisdiction. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. At this time, the court is going to grant the request of the prosecutor, and the protection order will be amended again, as will the bond conditions, as follows. Defendant may only be released on a GPS monitor if other bond conditions are met, and that GPS monitor would only allow the defendant to go to meet with his counsel, court appearances, and medical appointments. Those would be the only places that he could go from that GPS monitor. It will become a condition of the protection order and a condition of bond. Mr. Mansour, do you understand that I've added a condition of bond that you may only be released with a monitor so that it will always be known to law enforcement that where you are, and that you may not go to the prohibited areas that include where family members are. The only places that you can go would be the address that Rocky River would agree to, and to meet your attorneys, your court appearances, and your medical appointments. Do you understand all of that?
I understand that, what's about if I want to eat or food, something, like restaurant, supermarket? We would keep this very, we like to keep this very, black and white. We don't want to put other provisions in. So you would have whoever you would be staying with would have to make those arrangements for you, but that would be the limitations on your, and restriction on your travel. So that I have put into place. And then based upon everything presented here today, and this information with regard to flight risk and other issues, this court is granting the motion of the prosecutor. The bond on the murder case is amended to a $3 million cash or surety bond. That is 16 CRA 2206. The bond on 16 CRA 2202 remains at $500,000, 10%, and the misdemeanor domestic violence case 16 CRB 2203. On that case, the bond is a $1 million cash or surety bond. That concludes this matter, and we will be back in court October 20th, 2016 at 10:30 a.m. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Your Honor.